welcome everyone after our little break. It's lovely to see all of you, especially on such a beautiful sunny evening in England tonight, time that we have been waiting for very, very long time. So we appreciate your company and we look forward to Roxana's presentation. Roxana has been an MCI student, and we have learned huge amount from her as we watched her grow into a knowledgeable teacher in her placement, and as we saw her ideas about Montessori and early childhood education unfold on paper. You might have enjoyed her blog in preparation for tonight, and if you haven't read it, I really urge you to have a look at it. It weaves so many wonderful ideas about what creativity really means to children and why it is important in the life of children of today. So without talking too much, I will hand over to Roxana, perhaps to remind you that after her presentation, we will again go into breakout sessions and you will have an opportunity to explore some of the ideas Roxana has shared with us. So welcome, and over to you, Roxana.
Thank you so much for inviting me here and for such a lovely description. So tonight I will be speaking about creativity in the Montessori setting, and this is a very personal reflection about what some of her teaching may mean to myself, and I'll try to link these ideas with other theories and other thinkers. So, as there are many definitions for creativity and imagination, I try to focus on one particular one that seemed more relevant to early childhood, and that seemed to be transformational learning, which stands for personal and unique interpretation of actions, events, and experiences. In other words, transformational learning is about the child feeling empowered to make learning her own. If we were to consider how creativity is discussed in the Montessori philosophy, I often find that creativity is seen mainly as an internal process. Montessori focused on who the child became, her transformation. If in Reggio Emilia the child is seen as a producer and creativity has an incredible generative force, in the Montessori philosophy, the child is described as a self-creator. The ultimate goal for creativity would be to live in harmony and peace with others and the environment, to bring one's own unique gifts and service to the whole society. The way this can be achieved is through self-discovery, self-discipline, and willpower. Next, please. Now the question is, if like Montessori, we believe that we are all born with an immense potential, how can we keep this creative drive alive? And what kind of environments we need in order to welcome creativity? I will try and say a few things about the following elements that I thought might help with creating such an environment. An emotional climate that fosters belonging, love, and curiosity. The human tendencies and how these help individuals to uniquely manifest their talents. Regarding mistakes as opportunities, self-discipline and intrinsic motivation, embodied cognition, observant teachers that see beyond what is apparent and that are deeply tuned into the world of the individual child, and promoting creativity as a habit of mind. Next. The first pillar that is going to support an environment that invites creativity, in my view, is a deep sense of belonging. Amongst earliest practitioners, it is considered common sense that children can't do very much when they are under a great amount of stress or they feel out of place. This is very evident when the child is settling in. But when children feel that the people around them, both adults and peers, know them deeply and are really tuned into who they are, children are very likely to feel free and to feel encouraged to express themselves. We also know that children are more likely to show signs of curiosity and creativity when anchored in a secure attachment. I really like Winnicott's proposal that creativity could be interpreted as an encounter with an authentic sense of self, where the individual is relaxed in the presence of others. This allows for mental activity in the form of play. Next. The human tendencies. Montessori was a remarkable observer of the human nature. She wondered what makes people such unique individuals. If animals tend to do the same things their ancestors did, people tend to develop different types of skills and talents from the previous generations. She concluded that we are born with tendencies specific to humans that help us choose from the environment what benefits our evolution. And the way people develop, which differentiates us from the other species, creates a tapestry of talents and skills that is unique for each individual. In the first years of life, there is an unconscious force called the hormone, which helps children develop and effortlessly learn with incredible speed. These tendencies tend to manifest more strongly during sensitive periods, which are unique windows of development when children absorb knowledge, impressions, and experiences. To maximize the immense potential that children have in these windows of time, Montessori developed the curriculum we are now familiar with. Because of its universal application, it can also be replicated across the world. I would like to stop on the last tendency from the ones I've listed here, that of self perfection. In modern terms, would probably describe it as a desire for people to reach the highest version of themselves. Montessori speaks a lot about elevation, and people in the past might have referred to this tendency as the desire to feel closer to God. I would personally associate this with the human being's search for meaning and purpose. This is something that runs across the whole of our life course, but I believe that children are also searching for meaning, and meaningfulness is something worth considering when working with young children. So, asking ourselves whether the invitations which we present to the children are meaningful to them is really important. Next. So, another characteristics of a supportive environment would be that the environments are sensorially rich and promote embodied cognition. Montessori was adamant about the fact that children learn by doing and through their senses. She did not like that people discuss movement and learning as separate, and she was convinced that the faculty of imagination can only have a sensory base. She developed the sensorial materials because she noticed a sensitive period for refinement of the senses. I would stop here to say that there has been a bit of controversy when it comes to these materials, as they were not open ended. However, Montessori did not tell us to only use this, and surely children had plenty of first hand experiences that they could have referred to before using them. I think it's fair to say that the bank of impressions accumulated has to be plentiful before refinement takes place. And it's worth reminding ourselves about the importance of first-hand experiences and promoting a sensorially rich environment indoors and outdoors, irrespective of the apparatus we have available. I would consider adding open-ended resources as they can be manipulated in various ways. In any environment, both the degree of inventiveness and creativity and the possibility of discovery are directly proportional to the number and kind of variables in it, says Nicholson. And also, I'd like to mention that I don't think the theory of Louis Parts and Montessori are opposed. I remember Barbara telling us in a seminar that alongside the tessellation activity, where you would have a design onto which you would put the tessellations. You could also place them in a basket and let children explore them freely. And that is an example of how these two approaches can be married and there's no disruption. Next. Regarding mistakes as opportunities, Montessori urged us to change our attitudes towards mistakes. What looks like a mistake or imperfection to the adult eye may be a serious effort of the child to figure something out, to ask herself another question, or to adjust an approach. Sir Ken Robinson said, "If you are not prepared to be wrong, you will never come up with anything original." But that isn't to say that mistakes are the only way we're learning. However, this is a very powerful attitude to have towards what is considered a mistake. Alongside this new attitude towards mistake came a few attributes that are supporting adult manifests, such as not interfering when trial and error is taking place, allowing time for exploration, being non-judgmental, focusing on developing independence, respecting children's decision, showing genuine interest in the child's pursuit, and trusting the child. These are all qualities that Montessori encouraged and valued. It would be worth reflecting on how it feels like for a child to be surrounded by such an atmosphere. Next. Another aspect that is worth mentioning when it comes to discussing creativity in young children is that when children follow their interests, they tend to show high levels of discipline. And discipline was an aspect Montessori had a lot to say about. She did not regard discipline as sheer obedience. She aimed at helping children develop a much higher faculty, that of self-discipline. And the way to do this was to ensure that children are exercising free choice, are accessing an environment that invites active exploration, and this way activity is fueled by an intrinsic motivation. All of these elements are encountered in free flow play. Bruce says that children celebrate what they know in play, and everything can come together, therefore play being a powerful way to integrate and make learning meaningful. Next. We know that Montessori has a beautiful curriculum which respects and responds to the human tendencies. But throughout her writing, she makes us aware that this is not there to limit the child's experience. Instead, it is up to the directress to remain curious about where the child's interest might take them. She says that a child's liberty should have as its limits the interest of the group to which he belongs. But everything else, every act that can be useful in any way whatever, may be expressed. It should not only be permitted, but it should also be observed by the teacher. This is essential. Now, as I was reading this quote, I was thinking that Montessori used observation as probably her sole inspiration to designing activities. And I think we should follow that example and really observe children in all their pursuits. Next. I'm going to talk about adults' attitudes. Obviously, we can't predict what children might become later on, but if I were to make a wish and prioritize something I would like them to have gained after they attend the nursery, that would probably be a love for learning. Katz describes dispositions for learning as habits of mind or tendencies to respond to certain situations in certain ways. But there is a trick to this. Dispositions such as curiosity, enthusiasm, creativity don't appear to be something we can teach. They're quite subtle, and Dowling says they are caught rather than taught. Carr states that children are more likely to learn these if they are around adults who exhibit them. So it is worth reflecting on how our internal landscape looks like when we are in the presence of children. This places the spiritual preparation of the teacher as essential in our role to support children. I'd like to read a quote from Gabriel Garcia Marquez, which is very encouraging for Montessorians because he seems to have acquired quite a bit from being around the adult support populating his Montessori school. He says, I do not believe there is a method better than Montessori for making children sensitive to the beauties of the world and awakening their curiosity regarding the secrets of life. Next. Finally, I believe that in order to have a creative life, we don't need to be universally recognized, but like Marquez, we can all rejoice in the beauties of the world and remain curious about the secret of life. Putting children in touch with their authentic sense of self by observing and cherishing their unique creative ways expressing themselves can be truly empowering and effective, especially when fostering creativity and curiosity as a learn, learn, as a lifelong disposition. In an ever-changing world, we definitely need a variety of talents and gifts to solve new challenges, which makes Montessori's idea of offering one's unique gifts to the whole society so much more relevant. Thank you.
Thank you, Roxana, for voicing all your wonderful ideas and for putting on the screen so many connections between current early years theory and Montessori's principles, and expressing the Montessori principles with such high level of respect. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. I don't know about you, but we have had most fascinating conversation without actually addressing Roxana's question at all. So it just showed me how important this is for us Montessorians to explore a little bit further. And I wonder if Sarah, Ollie, and Suzanne would like to feedback first.
Sarah, do you want to go first?
Thank you, Suzanne. Yeah, we had a lovely discussion. We had quite a few students who I have been very lucky to work with, sharing their experiences. One of the things that came across very strongly is the symbolic side, children using materials and resources to create things that they have had a first-hand experience of, and how the open-ended resources can be really good in providing an avenue for them to explore or experiment an idea or a concept that they might have touched on or had a first-hand experience. Suzanne, what would you like to add?
Also, just, we going back to look into, because creativity very often centers around what you do outside and, what you do with junk play and that type of thing. And just to see how we can also engage children with creativity with Montessori materials. And one of the ladies, sorry, I can't remember her name, was talking about how one of the children needed to bring about 10 botany and zoology puzzles together and took all the pieces out to make a circle that the child then proceeded to go in and out of, before obviously then needing to pack it away and whatever. But so, you know, always that thing of how far do we allow exploration? And I think that is something that potentially we could discuss further at some point as well.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's kind of generally what has been explored by our group too. Antonella and Heidi.
Antonella, would you like to start?
Yes, I will. Thank you. Well, we needed a little bit of time to warm up, I think, and I guess that is really the proof that we needed to feel comfortable and to feel a sense of belonging in the group, and so that we can start to trust and then be freer in what we think and we express, like for children. So that I think that it was important in linking with the environment. In the setting for young children, interesting, we had Max, that is a psychotherapist. So he was talking about the importance of the environment and the possibility to co-construct what happens with the client, and being free to allow the ideas to flow together, and so the idea of this co-construction. Remember, Joanna really brought in the importance of not being afraid of mistakes, and that is for us first of all, adults, but and then really allowing children to experiment and explore, and really feeling that the mistake is a friend, and opens new ideas and new roads. And that is at the moment. Heidi, would you like to add?
I think just one of the discussions that revolved around the responsibility of the adult and the enthusiasm that the adult shows, and the openness to being creative, herself or himself, in the classroom, and allowing that to be part of the relationship that they build with the children, sets the tone for the idea that creativity is something that is just part of everything that we do. I think for me that was an interesting part of the conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Wendy, would you like to say something?
No, I think actually you said it. We had a lovely discussion, and it was really interesting with people's different views. As you so rightly said, we didn't get round to the question, but I think it was a very valuable half hour we had, and thank you, everybody.
But we have also found, Antonella, that it takes a little bit of time, particularly in this challenging question, for people to be able to explore some of the concepts, and wrongly or rightly, I have no idea, I always try to break that moment of silence by sharing anecdotes of my grandchildren, which it's just what is my lived in experience, as I'm not in this children in the classroom, but it really is. But it also brought me to the chapter that we are going to share next week about the importance of feelings and how we can validate the children's feelings as they create, particularly during the absorbent mind, so that they have the capacity to retain some of their self-worth as they are schooled out of creativity during the elementary year, because Pamela opened the discussion by saying that she read somewhere that children can be untaught creativity, and we have all observed that the freedom of the paint on a big sheet of paper vanishes as children come to work alongside others in a more structured way. So I think that's what has come. I mean, almost every slide in Roxana's presentation could be a theme for a discussion about creativity and what it really means in context of future society. I think that it is, we are educating children towards, or the demands of society is to educate them towards the workforce, but nobody actually has any idea what skills we will need in next 50 years, next 10 years, let alone next 50 years. So it is really the capacity to be creative and to be flexible and to be resilient are the things that we need to somehow help children establish in themselves as they grow and learn to be human beings. Roxana, would you like to add something or reflect on what has been said?
No, I really love the conversation that the presentation has started, and I actually really like Adriana's question about how do we know, how do we get in touch with the inner creativity of the child, and I would say we can't. Some things are ungraspable, and like Barbara, you said that the child has a secret. I think we all have one. But I think it's worth reflecting on our own relationship with creativity. That can be a little gateway into which we can relate to the child. We can't fully understand anyone. And that applies to children. They're not simple people, they're very complex, very complex personalities. But I'd like to invite people to reflect on how creativity makes ourselves feel, and that could probably be a little gateway to relate more to how creativity makes children feel, because it's not very different. It elevates us, it makes us feel a little bit taller, even though we're short in real life, but it makes us happy, and there's a sense of well-being and a true sense of meaning and creativity. We all have it. So
and after all, creativity is one of the human capacities which sets us aside from the other creatures in the animal kingdom. So it is something that we should celebrate and encourage in the children with whom we work. Any more comments or thought on this idea?
I definitely would like to have an evening for each slide,
Yeah.
like you said.
Yes.
I was just going to say that in our group, Dovi made a comment about the fact that, you know, creativity is everywhere. It doesn't have to be indoors or outdoors. It doesn't have to be with art materials. It can be in any place. And she talked about creativity in language, and how wonderful it is to watch that growing for the children, and how providing materials and looking at storytelling and how children tell stories with words or with actions or with all sorts of things, but that space around creativity with language, which was really beautiful.
It sounds like we have started a conversation which will go on for a little bit longer, and we will probably come and revisit some of the slides that Roxana so very skillfully pulled together to provoke our thinking about our own role in creativity. I hope you will be able to go outside just for a little bit and be creative in the sunshine. simply by feeling it on your body, or dancing to it, or singing to it, or just being in the sunshine. I'm going to go and water my allotment. I wish you lovely few days, and we look forward to seeing you next week when we will be exploring Philippa Perry's chapter 3 from her book. And in a couple of weeks' time, you may want to join us for Montessori Europe, when Gwendolyn and I will revisit this theme from a slightly different perspective, when we look at children's play in Montessori settings and how it connects with the characteristics of effective learning, which provide us with really wonderful tools to interpret children's creativity or understand children's creativity a little bit more. So we look forward to seeing you soon, and thank you, Roxana, again.
Thank you very much. Thank you for engaging. Thank you.